That not my name.
Goodbye, everybody. It is Bizarro, and welcome to the end of the Bizarro Show. I have not done a video in a while, and I'm sorry for that. I haven't felt well, but I'm hopefully getting on the mend. I wanted to start off the show by giving a big thank you to you all. I just passed 200 subscribers, and that is a really nice milestone for me, so I really appreciate that. I also want to thank my new Patreon, MattyBo23, who came in at the Mayor of Bizarro World level. Thank you for pledging to the show. I really appreciate it. With that said, let me welcome back a guest that has been with me before, Bizarro Flash.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, man. It's terrible to have you back.
Terrible to be here.
Yeah, so you should feel honored because you had a request to do this type of video again. I guess somebody really liked our January preview of raids. And the way we're going to structure this won't be a very long video, but we'll just briefly talk about a summary of the January raid. If you want to know more of what I thought about the January raid, you can check out my WRL video with 2Dtron, where I discuss the January raid in more depth. Just look for the WRL channel and you'll see the video there that 2Dtron and I did. So before we get too far into the January raid, I do want to give a shout out to my alliance for a second place finish. I believe we are one of 2 members of the Billion Point Club. And I want to give a particular shout out to our MVP of the raids, who was Jack Dono, who really just crushed it for us. The other shout out I want to give is to my officers who provided me support during the raid: Night Flash, MattyBo23, Inferior Warrior, and of course, our guest, Bizarro Flash. So thanks for all your help, man. I really appreciated that.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. You know, it was a lot of fun doing it, you know. I mean, it was great to get raids back. Yeah, there were still some bugs with the raids and everything, but you know, I think we were all really excited, you know, to get back to raiding and everything, and you know, just providing motivation for people, you know, and it was fun trying to fight off, you know, the third place team when they came up on us and everything, and just holding our position. So
yeah, they really gave us a good fight, and that made it a lot of fun to fight with UAGLA, COA. So I give props to them too. Did you?
Yeah,
was it a good experience for you overall in the raids?
You know, overall, I had a fairly positive experience with it. I know some of my teammates may not have had such a positive overall experience with it, but I didn't have the problem that you did with the raid. And you know, for the first couple of days that they started, I was on vacation, so I pounded out, you know, probably 60 boss fights in, you know, in an hour or something like that while I was on vacation, you know, and didn't do a whole lot, you know, about it. But overall, I was really stoked that, you know, we had raids again. It was something new and something fresh again. So
I agree. It was good to see them back. I mean, overall, I had a good experience too. I did experience one bug. Well, I experienced some different bugs, but one in particular that I faced was some of our guys were running the early bosses at 5x because they had so much extra alliance boss energy that had rolled over from the previous raid. And while they were hitting it at 5x, I was trying to get into the fight, and before I could hit the boss, the fight would end, and then it would tell me I didn't hit it, but then for some reason it thought I needed to collect my rewards, and it wouldn't allow me to collect them. It kept acting like there was some error. So because I couldn't collect the alliance boss rewards, I couldn't move on to the next boss. And it was kind of frustrating, but it only happened for one day. And luckily the developers were there and they were able to work out whatever bug that was.
yeah, I guess my only thing, and it's kind of nitpicky or whatever, but when you first start doing the raids and you go to the, try to hit an alliance boss, it tells you, you have to join an alliance first or whatever. And it's like, well, no, I'm in an alliance, and everything. And then I remember that, I have to go generate a boss first before I can attack an alliance boss. So that's kind of goofy to me for some reason, because it seems, I don't know, I guess counterintuitive, but
yeah. Well, the other bug the one that we're used to is what I call the staring contest, where you go into a match, you're ready to fight, and nobody will do anything, so you're just having a staring contest. But I will say I only think I had that happen maybe 3 times, which is a nice improvement over previous raids. Did you experience that one?
Yeah, well, it happens to me more often than not in the middle of fights, where like it just kind of freezes for like a second, where they're like, okay, they've my side and the the box blows a little bit, and we're kind of sizing each other up, and that's kind of what it seems like, and I just kind of assumed, because it was, there was other people doing damage. It lags a little bit, if you will, and waits for it to connect, to meet up. So that was my understanding of it, or I could be way off base. I have no idea, but that was my thought process, at least.
Yeah, that makes sense. I still was overall pleased with the January raids, and from what it sounds like, you were too.
Character selection was my other. I mean, there was a lot of BS tunes with the multipliers and everything, but I think we all pretty much kind of agree about who the MVPs were or whatnot for tunes. And
yeah. So do you want to say who we thought the MVPs were?
Well, I mean, Arceus, I think, was pretty clutch, and I think Atrocitus was pretty clutch as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And I was actually running Atrocitus not in lead. I was using a different leader. I don't want to spoil what our strategy was in case that ever rolls around again. But I thought both of those were the MVPs of the January raid. So anything else you want to say about January raids, or should we just get right into February?
Not thinking of anything off the top of my head. I think we did a pretty good job covering all of them. Moving forward, away from the lantern raids and everything, I'm excited for the monthly raids to keep coming, and I hope they keep ironing out some of the bugs, and they get this down better and better. But I'm pretty excited for this month.
Yeah, and I hope once they get this down to a science, that can pave the way to move on to creating other newer modes for the game. But we can discuss that in some other episode.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that they could take this, take the game and add with new content and everything. So, but I think focusing on the task at hand is probably a good thing.
Yeah. So let's move on to February raids. And February raids will start February 26th at 4 p.m. Pacific time, which for me is 7 p.m. Eastern. And I think you're on Central, right?
Yes, sir. So it's 6 o'clock.
Gotcha. So your reset always happens like right at dinner time.
Yeah, I but as soon as daylight savings time hits again, I'm back at 7, and I like the reset at 7 personally.
I do. I like mine at 8 because that gives me a chance to get everything done I need and then relax and play. And then the raids will end March 1st at 4 p.m. Pacific time. So that's 4 days of raiding. And, it starts a little lighter and gets heavier as it goes on. And then, of course, the villain this time will be Darkseid. So no torturing us with Scarecrow.
Yeah, like I said, I still would surprise me if they snuck somebody in who lowers the hit chances and everything. but like I said, I'm glad they're staying away from that again because that was really annoying.
Yeah, hopefully they'll be nice to us. So the big thing that we wanted to talk about is the characters that will be the bonus tunes for this raid. And the reason we wanted to do that is, we kind of went through them quickly. When I went back and listened to the January raid preview video, we went through them kind of quickly, just listing them. And so I thought what we would do this time is to actually go through them a little bit more slowly, talk about what we think the positives and negatives for each of these characters might be, and then just sort of give an overall rating of whether or not we think that they're worth upgrading for this particular raid. So let's start with the 5X characters and Cassandra Cain. And if you don't mind, Bizarro Flash, I'll take the lead on this one.
Please do.
So with Cassandra Cain, I have it up on my screen. The viewers will see. I don't have her open. I think very few players have her open, and so it's really hard to know how she will perform. But I still tried to think of some positives and negatives. So the positives for me is if you look at her strength rating of when she was released as a character, she has, I believe, the highest strength rating in the game, which says to me that she'll be able to do a lot of damage. And then the other thing I liked about her was that her basic can do a lot of damage and even offers a bonus if she's invisible for even more damage. So those are what I saw as the positives. And then the negatives for me were she does apply bleeds and relies to a certain extent on bleeds. And as you know, bleeds don't work on raid bosses. And then the other negative for me was that one of her moves is only light damage. So that means that she's going to have to rely more on her basic, which isn't necessarily a problem if you're going to run her with Atrocitus. So, and I'll hold off on what I think my rating is until you get the chance to discuss what you thought of positives and negatives. And then we can both say what we thought.
Yeah, again with Cassandra Cain, I don't have her unlocked yet. I will before the raid starts and everything, but I think you hit a lot of the good points on her. I think she's got a chance to be, unfortunately, looking at the tunes, I think she has a chance to be one of the better tunes based on what we have in front of us with the tunes that are going to be released. But again, I don't think you're going to maximize all of her abilities on the bosses because of the fact that, she does rely on bleeds in some facet from what it appears just looking at her kit.
Yeah.
And maybe once we get to play around with her a little bit, maybe we'll figure out ways around it. But just with the fact that she does look like she's gonna hit pretty decently, especially if she's invisible. I think you pair that with the 5 times multiplier, and I think that'll be worth the upgrade as soon as we get her for the raid. So
yeah,
that's my analysis.
And one thing I would say too, and I don't know if you do this, is when I'm trying to decide if I want to upgrade a tune for a raid, I also think about what is sort of the utility of the tune going forward. So for instance, in the last raid, I did not upgrade Parallax at all because I just couldn't see myself using Parallax going forward. So I don't want to invest. It affects my decision of whether I want to invest resources in a character. Because I don't want to just think about raids.
Yeah, I agree 100% on that. I think, if you have, everybody else, max, then I guess, go ahead, do what you want. But for those of us who have work to do with other tunes and want to save resources to put them where we need to put them and everything, I think that's a very sound strategy. That being said, I do think Cassandra Cain has the kit that looks like I'll use her with other teams and everything moving forward. So I do think she's worth investing in and bringing up to the to a level that makes her usable for the raids.
Yeah, I agree. I put my rating as strong possibilities, and if I had to venture a guess, and I don't know why I didn't. Sometimes I look at things and I realize something, then I think, how did I not see this before? Am I stupid or what is going on? But each of your multipliers, your 5x, your 3x, your 2x, have one of each affinity, and I don't know why I never saw that before. But to me, out of all the physical characters that are available, she seems to me to have the most upside.
Yeah, no, that's hands down. And I do think having her as the 5 times, I think, is something that this raid, I think maybe they did because they know we're not going to have a lot of time there. I would be surprised if we see her being that high again in future raids. My guess would be she'd be down in a 2 times multiplier if they're going to put her, in there, because just, well, I'm getting ahead of myself again, but
yeah, well, I think they learned maybe a lesson from like Reverse Flash, right? Because man, he just ran him by himself,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So let's talk about. Let me bring up Kid Flash real quick. I'm doing a search for him among my characters. So the next one we're going to talk about is Kid Flash, and if you're looking at my Kid Flash on the video, you'll see that I don't have him ranked up. I don't have him very high in terms of my overall roster comparatively, which is probably going to give you a signal of what I'm thinking for the raid. And, the one big positive I thought of for Kid Flash was the ability to put turn meter down on the enemy, which will give you extra attacks. And to me, raids boil down to one thing, which is how much damage can you do in the shortest amount of time. And so there is the possibility that turn meter down will help a little bit. But the negative for me is he is a very low damage dealer, which means you're wasting turns that maybe higher damage dealers could be taking for you. And that's really all I could think of for Kid Flash. Now you're Bizarro Flash, so I don't know if that biases you for or against the character, but
I'm not Bizarro Kid Flash. We'll put it that way. I think you hit. I think you hit it pretty good. The one thing I would maybe argue with you about a little bit, or maybe debate with you about, is the fact that I'm not as heavy on the turn meter down. I'm more interested in the gaining of turn meter, because turn meter down on a raid boss, I mean, they attack quickly.
Very true.
I mean, they're gonna get probably 2 attacks in for every one of yours.
And I think to boost your argument, I don't think he's going to be doing enough turn meter down quick enough to make it a noticeable difference. Now I could be wrong.
Nope, I agree with you on that. I think that the turn meter down is not so beneficial. I think the turn meter has a chance to be more beneficial, but I don't think he's gonna be attacking enough, or it's not gonna be his turn enough to keep that up and everything. And then with his triple threat, you're not gonna get to use that really, because big deal. You can use it as many 25 chance to repeat, or 75% if there are speed ups on the enemy team.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's not going to get to use that often, and
exactly.
It's just, I don't think the benefit is there. So I personally think that if you don't have a usable Kid Flash right now, I would not spend the resources to up it. Personally, I just think the 5 times multiplier on him is a waste, and I think you are better off filling that spot with somebody else.
Yeah, the joke I always say is 5 times 0 damage is still 0. So if you're not doing any damage, then You can
Now, I
put
mean,
all the
if it affected
multipliers
the
you
turn
want.
meter, if it affected the turn meter gain, if he 5 times, the turn meter manipulation, that would be a different story. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just I don't think he's worth a roster spot personally.
Yeah, so my overall rating was not recommended. I wouldn't recommend putting any resources into this character. And again, part of that is because I don't see any value going forward in the game with this character unless he gets some sort of massive rework.
April is coming.
That is true. So the next character we want to talk about at the 5x multiplier is Alan Scott. And why don't you start with this one? Because I've started with the other two.
That's fine. In my notes, I wrote down MVP, MVP, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point.
Yeah. So you're
think
saying you would
Alan
give him a
Scott-
bad rating?
Yeah. I really personally think that having the 5 times multiplier on Alan Scott, guy hits like a truck already for the most part.
Yeah.
I think adding that to him and everything, and then the fact too that he should be counterattacking plenty. I just personally think that he's gonna be a big part of this raid, unless I guess there's tons of red raid bosses, in which case then we'll have to reassess the situation. But
Yeah.
against the blue and green, I think he should be. I guess I should say energy and yeah.
Yeah, energy and mystical, yeah. And I agree with you because I think didn't it ended up in January that the boss that was sort of the longest term boss for the raid was Mystic, right?
I
For
think
alliance
so.
bosses.
Yeah, I think so. That sounds right.
Well, I had some of the same things as you. Positives for me was that he does massive damage, especially if he's shielded. He protects his teammates with strength downs. If you look at the move that's called Faithful Chastisement, he can apply 2 strength downs to enemies that hit shielded allies. So that acts as even good defense by having him there against raid bosses. And the only negative that I could think of is that he needs shields for extra damage and for some of these abilities to trigger. But given that he can give out shields, it doesn't seem that it is that much of a negative. Plus, you could always pair him with somebody else that gives out shields. So for me, go ahead.
I was gonna say the thing about it too is, yeah, he needs shields, but he's generating a lot of shields too. It's not like you've got a pretty decent chance of him, making a shield, at the beginning of anybody's turn. You have almost a coin flip chance.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree.
and especially, with the enemy turn and everything, I think shield, yeah, it's gonna be iffy with some of the raid bosses and stuff, but I still think the fact that he's gonna be just counterattacking and everything, I think makes him worth it with the shield. So
yeah, so my overall rating was highly recommended, and I do think he will be the MVP if I were to make a guess.
That was my guess as well.
Let's move on to Black Mask. Would you like me to go first or second? I'll give you the choice this time.
It doesn't really matter to me. I guess I can start. Realistically, I think with Black Mask, I think with the debuffs aren't gonna be a great thing against the raid bosses. Again with the bleeds and stuff, and I'm not sure. The strength down, agility downs, and stuff like that. I don't know how much of a difference those are going to really make. They might slow bosses down a little bit, but on day 3, day 4 bosses, I'm not sure how much of a difference those are really going to make. I really think his even the odds with the legendary upgrade on it, where it applies 2 strength up to all allies when called to assist by Black Mask. He's gonna be calling assists, I think pretty decent. So I think you're gonna get a chance to kind of get those strength ups on your team pretty frequently, and I think that's gonna be where he makes his play and everything. So
Yeah.
That's my basic assessment of him. I think he's going to be a good utility. Again, I don't know about the multiplier aside from keeping him alive. Aside from that, I think damage-wise and everything, really putting him in your team for the damage that he's going to.
Yeah, and that was the big negative for me, is that he is not a heavy damage dealer himself. And the other thing is, you mentioned the debuffs. This is again an instance where his basic can place bleeds on a character in normal situations, but of course bleeds don't work on a raid boss. So yeah, I had a lot of the same things as you. He can help to protect his team to a certain degree with some debuffs if they trigger. He is hard to kill, which I thought is a positive. And I had the same thing as you, the strength ups that he can provide when they call assist if you have that legendary upgrade. But my overall rating is I would put him as about a medium priority. And I would say that it is, if you see yourself using Black Mask after raids, then I think he's a medium priority for this. But I certainly think if you're prioritizing your physical characters in this one, I would actually place him third among the physical characters available.
Oh, I agree completely. Again, he's an all right tune. I think if you're going to be using him later on after the raids, I think, go ahead, buff him up and use him and everything. But I'm not sure that just having the assist and the strengths up necessarily facilitate using him in the raids. Again, to the other thing that he has that I personally don't like in tunes is, again, with the passive, with the whenever an ally dies, Black Mask gains, I don't like relying on my allies to die, especially in arena and everything. That's not what I'm striving for. I'm trying to make it out without anybody dying. So
yeah. Well, let's move on to Superman. And I'll take the lead on this one. I actually struggled a lot with Superman. He's, to kind of reveal my thought on him, he's sort of a I could take it or leave it kind of thing. He can help protect the team. He does have a chance to stun on his basic, which can often get you an extra turn. That's a big positive. The negative of that is only 25%. And you have to have the legendary upgrade on his basic for that to happen. He does decent damage relative to other energy characters, and I would say among the unfortunately poor choices available of energy characters, he's probably your best damage dealer. But I can only still sort of give him this sort of medium priority status because, you and I were talking about it before the show. I don't really use him that much anymore.
Yeah, I have in my notes that he's a really good noob team lead. I don't think he's going to be great against raid bosses again. For the greens that are available, I think he's probably the best. If you're hell bent on having, an energy tune that is that gets a multiplier, I think you probably have to go with Superman. But if you don't need them, I wouldn't really invest in them very much. And for God's sake, I would stay away from that. His Kryptonian physiology, that's an upgrade. The legendary power on it drives me bonkers.
Yeah,
I
it's
just
totally,
can.
it makes no sense.
Yeah, I
Now,
hate
I
that
will
the fact
say,
that
I actually think it would be good for the raid, but that's the only time it's going to be good.
I
Um,
mean, it's the thing too. I mean, if you have the fifth one where he gains damage immunity with using Kryptonian physiology, the last thing I want is for him to go faster. That it's like no,
yeah, I agree.
just yeah,
So did you
just
have him basically as a medium priority too?
yeah. Like I said, I wouldn't invest in him if you're not going to use them, and I can't see players that are end game content using Superman a whole lot in a lot of different ways or whatever.
Right.
Like you said, I upgrade them if you absolutely want to have a multiplier energy tune, but if not, I think you can pass on them.
Or if you don't have to put in a lot of resources on him.
Yeah, that's the other thing. But again,
Let's
I think after the raid, he'll be going back and sitting on your bench.
so let's talk about Ares.
Uh, again,
Yeah.
I wrote down in my notes. I wrote down yuck exclamation.
Yeah. If we were prioritizing every person in this list, he might be darn near the bottom of the list for me.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't know that I even really want to get into a whole bunch of positives with him or negatives because I don't even want to push people the wrong way with any of the positives and or negatives from him. But I would say he is a totally ignore status for me.
I mean, he's got flames coming off his helmet. That's something nice I could
Yeah,
say
if you
about
like
him.
looking at that, I mean, get him to legendary right away.
Yeah, I mean, aside from that, yeah, I can't. There's not much I can say. I mean, he can give you some survivability, I guess. But yeah, as far as damage, he's does none really. Yeah, I mean, how great is Enrage going to be against the raid boss? Um,
So
they're gonna.
I was gonna
Huh?
just quickly interject. You probably can't hear it, Bizarro Flash, but every once in a while the signal goes down and it slows down what you're saying, which makes you really sound like Bizarro Flash. But I want to make it clear to the listeners that this is just a artifact of the internet connection we're over to connect, and nothing to do with it. He's actually going into Bizarro Flash mode.
I'm going Bizarro
You stop talk fast. All right, so let's
Yeah,
hit Huntress a little bit and talk about her. You want to now? She is a character you have used pretty regularly before. Am I correct on that?
I stick her in here and there. I think since her rework, she has some usability. I mean, especially um paired with I think with either Red Hood or even Lex, team lead. I think she's got a place there as on a team depending upon what kind of team going up against. Unfortunately, a lot of the things that make her, I would say maybe about a little above average,
Yeah.
aren't gonna hit in the blitz or in the raid. Um,
I
because
think
you're not.
she's a nice alternative maybe if you can't get Cassandra Cain up because she's I think out of all the physical ones she's going to be the second best damage dealer.
Yeah, I have no doubt on that. I just what makes her what I've been using her for isn't going to happen really in the raids or whatever because a lot of things that trigger when either enemies die or when they're 25% health left. It's not going to make as big a deal in the raid because
Exactly.
you're not going to be killing. You shouldn't be wasting attacks on the sidekicks of the raid bosses. I mean, unless you got some AOE's that can pop them off real quick. But aside from that, like you're probably not going to be killing things, so you
Well,
don't
and I
have to
think
worry
what
about
you're
where to play.
saying is dissimilar to what I was going to say, which is she's a momentum-based character, and that momentum builds based off of killing.
Yeah.
And you only have 2 minions at most in the raid boss. And I will say, I do think it's a positive. She could maybe mop up the minions for you so you can get focused more quickly on the raid boss. But I agree with you. She's a momentum-based character. That momentum is based on killing people, and it just can't happen here. So I think,
I mean, the extra 115% damage or whatever that you'd be, well, I'm sorry, 130% damage you'd be getting if an enemy is dead, you know, I mean, you'd have to kill one of the minions in order to get that on the big hit. And I don't know that it's worth it, you know, to be focusing on, you know, you got 2 minutes, you know, to attack. I don't think focusing on killing a minion, you know, it is something that you should be doing. Yeah, if you, like I said, if you bring like a Black Adam in or something, you know, and you're you know, Shazamming each time, cool. But aside from that, like, I think the things that make her better than she was, I think gets taken away from the raid itself. So
so what did you rate her?
I think she is worth investing in, but I think people need to temper their expectations on what she's gonna produce.
Yeah. Yeah, I have some hesitation, but I do think she's a good alternative if you don't have Cassandra Cain, because you're going to need somebody physical. And
well, and that's, you know, I mean, you get certain bosses or whatever that come up. I think, you know, where if you're going to go with a red heavy team too, I think she has a place on that kind of a team.
Yeah.
I just don't, you know, I don't think she's gonna be a necessary part of a team per se.
Right.
Whereas I think, you know, going back, if I want to compare her to Alan Scott, I think Alan Scott provides a ton more upside than Huntress does, personally.
Well, let's move on to Captain Cold. Why don't you? Do you want to go first on this one?
Sure. Again, I think Captain Cold, to me, a lot of it seems like he's kind of Kid Flash light, or maybe Kid Flash is Captain Cold light. I'm not sure.
I think it's the latter, actually.
Yeah, because I mean, he's got stuns, which I guess is the only thing that is gonna make him probably better.
Well, he also has out of turn attacks. That was the other thing. So because he does the turn meter down like Kid Flash, and you mentioned the chance to stun. The other thing for me was that he can do out of turn attacks if his teammates are getting hit.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I forgot about that. I don't use Captain Cold.
I don't either. I don't know why I happen to remember that. I don't ever use him.
Yeah.
You know, the obvious thing as a negative is he doesn't do much damage.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the other. Like, I don't really think he's gonna be doing a lot of damage. I think that's another thing where it's pretty obvious with most tunes, if you're able to attack out of turn or, you know, counter attack or whatever. I think with a lot of that, they kind of lighten up the damage a little bit. Otherwise, tunes start to get overpowered quick.
Yeah. You know, for me, I think he's a bit of a gamble. You know, I see this possibility that he could have a huge upside if he can get enough speed downs on the raid boss where it turns into a situation where you're just getting so many extra turns. But it's a bit of a gamble. So I would say if somebody had him, pretty close to being done, it might be worth finishing him up, because there could be a potential upside, but it is a bit of a gamble in my opinion.
Yeah, I personally, I can't recommend using him because I think there's better options out there. It's hard for me to justify putting the resources into him to get him to that kind of a level where he might be useful or whatever. And there again too, I mean, in order to get all those speed downs, it's going to take a little bit of time, but the upside is there too.
Yeah.
So, I guess it depends on a person, what they have for resources available and everything. But personally, I will not be investing in Captain Cold this particular.
I just keep having this feeling like, what if he's the one key to this whole thing and I don't have him upgraded because he can do so many speed downs, but I don't think it'll be the case.
What if it's Ares?
Yeah, like we look like total dumb, almost cursed, but yeah, hopefully that won't happen.
Yeah, like I said, I can see the upside with Captain Cold. So he's not, I'm not putting him on Ares level, Kid Flash level, or whatever. But I'm probably gonna, if I'm being honest, I'm probably putting him on that same tier as like Superman. Basically, if you feel like investing in him, if you can see yourself using him in the future, or if you have him already, pretty close to usable or whatever, I would say go ahead and use them. But if not, then
yeah,
I personally think it's gonna make her break you.
Well, let's finish up with Vixen. I need to bring her up on my screen real quick. Vixen was, I think for me, I am working on upgrading Vixen, and it's not because I think that she's going to be a real valuable asset to the raid, because I don't see a lot of positives in her. Her bleeds won't work. The stun that she can do is dependent upon bleeds. She's not a heavy damage dealer. Her team leader ability gives turn meter up, but only if the raid boss buffs, and I don't believe that dark side buffs. So in the end, I'm not sure. Now, I have not used her. The users are looking at my screen. They'll see my Vixen is not very high. So I haven't used her. Maybe she's suddenly doing massive amounts of damage and I don't know it. But with Alan Scott there, I just don't see it.
My thoughts on her is I think you hit a lot of it. Personally, I think there's potential there where she's kind of like got a chance to be kind of like a master key or whatever eventually here, because of all of her different like attack styles.
Yeah.
She can kind of fit into just about any team and not hurt that team per se. I don't think she'll be the MVP on any team, but she's got that ability now. Style team, like you on a team, if you do whatever, if you have like Manta with her or whatever, putting bleeds on, then yeah, I think the bleed, the Might of the Rhino ability could be pretty solid.
Yeah, but you can't, because you can't use bleeds on a raid boss.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was mainly referring to her utility in the future.
Right.
I think right now the two abilities that look the best to me with the raid, and I'm stretching here a little bit to make these for some positives in the raid, but I guess the two positives for me would be the ability to double strike with Fury of the Bear. I think that could be good against green raid bosses or whatever. You're stacking blues or whatever. I think that could be all right. And the other one that I would say, which won't be probably with this raid, with a certain one we had in Halloween, the can't miss ability of Flight of the Eagle is also another that I can see in the future. Like I said, that's
a good point.
She's got utility factor. I don't think she's going to be, an MVP on anybody's raid team soon by anytime soon, but I think she has the ability to be usable with all sorts of different teams.
Yeah, I agree. Well, so those are all the
So,
bonus tunes. I am looking forward to the raid. We got about, what, 7, 8 days, something like that.
yeah, something like that. I think a week from, yeah,
Week from
I don't
tomorrow.
know.
Yeah, a week from tomorrow. Anything else that we didn't cover you want to say?
Alan Scott for MVP.
Yeah, I think he is going to be the MVP. Well,
Yeah,
I want to thank you again for coming on, especially doing it short notice. If you have not subscribed to my channel, I would appreciate it if you subscribed. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you didn't like the video, well, just try to resist hitting that dislike button.
I do have a question.
Okay.
If you didn't like the video, how come you're still listening?
Yeah, that's true. If you made it this
Why did you
far, are
make
you
it
just
this
torturing
far?
yourself? Good point. And I should also mention my Patreon page. You can, if you want to become a Patreon, you can become a Patreon at patreon.com/Bizarro Style. Remember, Bizarro's 1Z, 2 R's. With that said, thank you, Bizarro Flash. I appreciate it. It was horrible having you on the show. I mean, it was really
I
horrible.
know. Let me tell you, it was the horror was all mine.
Yeah, well, it should be. All right. Thank you, everyone. Take care.